Hello, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a great show today. You know, everybody that watches the show, you know that I love bringing worldwide leading experts on the show in their particular fields. I'm so fascinated with people that have a specialty. I'm so fascinated with people that are experts. As a matter of fact, you all know that we say that specialists win and generalists lose. And it's with this in mind that we've gone through the Rolodex today. Something came across my desk and, we read an article about what Mr. John Barnett does at Plans Examiners. And we looked into it and we were so fascinated with it because it's a business that you wouldn't normally think about, but it's so necessary and so needed. I'm sort of, foreshadowing our conversation a little bit. I'm sort of giving you a little bit of tease. Wait till you hear what he does. And it's going to resonate for you as an entrepreneur about what it takes to build a great company, which John has done, but also to be an expert in a particular field. So here we go. John P. Barnett. Thanks so much for coming on the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Well, thank you, Andy. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. I've teased it a little bit. People are probably wondering, what does John do? What is Plan Examiners all about? But, we become famous for pulling the lens back to 30,000 feet with our guests. So let's pull the lens back before we get into it, because I have so many questions, to 30,000 feet, and tell us what you do at Plan Examiners.
Well, Plans Examiners is a code consulting company. We're hired by state, local, federal, and private individuals. And what we do is we look into the code requirements for a particular building, different use group, especially when someone is moving into an existing structure, which may have limitations for what they plan to do with it. So it's a good first check to see if your plan is on the right path.
Wow, it's so interesting. And just to give you some idea for the people watching the show about the breadth of what, John and his team does. They've already served over 132 communities throughout America. They've got projects in 26 states and counting. It's real interesting. They've done business in Panama, Mexico, and of course, Canada as well. So let's talk about it a little bit, John. So people hear about it, you're everywhere. If you're sort of in this space, everybody knows about Plans Examiners. What does the first conversation sound like with one of your clients? They reach out to you, they need a world-class code consultation. Maybe they need some consulting on, their enforcement of their codes. What does that first conversation sound like with you, John?
Well, typically, we're referred. We don't do any advertising. We don't do any marketing at all. Our business and what we do and how we save clients money is what gets us our next client. So typically, they're already somewhat familiar with us from another project or another client, and they contact us and they will let us know, what they're looking for. In some cases, if we're not able to help them, we may refer them to someone else. But we gather the information about what they're doing. So if you're a company that's looking at moving into a market and you've done your demographics and now you're searching for properties. So what we'll do is go in and look at the properties compared to what the use is going to be. So if before it was a garage and now they want to make it a daycare center, well, that's going to be quite a feat. Because of the safety requirements for the two vary so much. So, we'll go and typically they'll have 3 or 4 properties. We'll go and look at them. We'll give them a rundown of the code compliance, what they'll have to do to make it into the kind of structure or operation they want. And that way it gives them all the information to make a good business decision. Not just the rent is, $50,000 on this property, it's $100,000 on the other one. Well, the $50,000 you might only have to put $3 million in, and the other one you might have to put $10 million in. So it allows them to have a full breadth of not just their operations and logistics and everything else, but what is it physically going to take? What code do they have to meet? Are they going to be involved with the fire marshal? Are they going to be involved with the building code officials? Do they need zoning and planning permission to do it? So it's a pretty like you said, 30,000 square foot, 30,000 mile view, that you just look to see if the pieces of the puzzle will start to come together.
Yeah, John, it's so fascinating what you do. Now, we want to talk about growth because a lot of people have, reached out to me, they've emailed me and, they've reached out to me and they said, hey, when you get an expert on, ask the questions about growth. Where is the growth happening right now? I mean, is it in the suburban areas, in the inner city, rural areas, under-resourced areas? Where do you see most of the growth happening right now, sort of in the practice that you provide and what people are sort of trying to gain for their buildings?
Well, there's been a big switch, a big flip in that, obviously, since COVID and everything. We saw a lot of residential investment in people's property because they were at home and quarantined. So they may have had a pool that they wanted to put in or a deck they've been putting off or remodeling. On the commercial end, only the last year was mainly companies that had a vital need. So a lot of hospital expansions. Fortunately, we're working on the Pittsburgh International Modernization Project, and that, of course, kept going last year. But it was a pretty tough year for growth last year. What we're seeing emerging this year, though, is a lot of residential, low-income housing. So I think it's a perfect storm right now where we came off of being tied up in our homes for months on end and businesses' hands were handcuffed. And now the financing is still favorable and they're starting to look at investing. But we're talking major companies like wind development. These are large, deep pocket corporations that can take a little bit of a gamble at this point.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. And of course, you have a world-class team at Plans Examiners. And, you've got a great entrepreneurial background. We want to get into that a little bit later in our show with you because it's just so fascinating how you've built this company and where you came from. But, when we think about the different countries, so for example, you've done some business in Canada and Panama and Mexico. Do each country pose a totally different sort of problem for the people who are your clients?
Well, they do. Some of it is, being unfamiliar with, maybe the codes. Fortunately, though, the NFPA, the National Fire Prevention Association, is used in our hemisphere. So, we'll go in and sometimes you have to build up a rapport with the code officials. You're from America. They're used to people coming in and just telling them what to do. So you have to let them know that, look, you're here for safety just as they are. And I like to jokingly tell them that the laws of physics, are the same in your country as in ours.
I love that. The law of physics doesn't change based on the country. That's so interesting. So when we look at what you do, John, I know you can't pigeonhole it because, it's just a remarkable business, but when we look at sort of the one thing that's your run to daylight, the one thing that you help people with more than any other thing, is there one area that you can compartmentalize for our viewers to help them understand, more intensely about what you do, the one area of sort of focus and expertise?
Well, I would say that the biggest thing is that, you really have to understand when the code asks you to do something, what does it mean? What is it trying to accomplish? And I think that knowing what the code is asking you to do, not just the words, it'll tell you to, have a 2-hour firewall or some type of provision. You have to understand what that's trying to accomplish. And when you're very familiar with it, there's multiple ways that you can meet that code. So I think the best thing we do is we give our clients options. Okay. So there's not only one way to meet the code, and also where to save money. Sometimes people think that they have to put money in a certain area, but they really don't. And you already have to spend enough money to meet the code. So we don't want our clients to spend the money unwisely when on something that isn't required, and then something that is required, they have to spend more money. So I would say that what we bring to our clients every day is a clear understanding of, what they're trying to accomplish. We get to know our client, so we understand their business. And I think that's the thing that we do that sets us apart.
Yeah, I love it so much. And these codes can be very involved. The codes can be very complex. They can be somewhat complicated. And for you to be able to take that and simplify it in a way for your clients is remarkable. And what I love about it is you're not just simplifying the code, but you're telling your clients, hey, here's the code, but here's some options for you. Here's some things that you can do. And if you want to, have a value proposition on this particular code, if you do it this way, that will save you money. So I would imagine that's a great sort of way to approach things in your business. And you've got a demonstrated history at doing that, which is really, really awesome. I love it so much. Now, John, you've got a great background. You've got a great experience sort of prior to plans examiners. Maybe you could just touch on that, and then we can get into your entrepreneurial spirit and your entrepreneurial sort of mindset, because it's very fascinating.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I come from a family of 5 boys. My dad was in construction. He owned many different companies, and we got to see construction from the ground up. We started working with him, and even though he owned the company, he started us working as laborers, and he wanted us to do every job of people that we would direct in the future. So it was his own sort of training class for us. And plus, we got to see how to handle things in a professional, gentlemanly way and with integrity. That's something that our dad taught us. So we worked through that. Then I joined the Army Reserve to get money for college. And I was in a combat engineering group with my dad. So again, I got to be mentored by him. And, we learned how to build bridges out of sticks and stones out in the, when you didn't have the materials. So now that we're overseeing using proper materials, it's infinitely more easy than it was to construct something without all the various mechanized equipment.
Wow. I mean, working with your dad from the ground up, your dad had this sort of blueprint for you. It sounds like with the boys where, he wanted you to learn every single thing that there was that had to be learned about construction. And that way you knew what was going on. You could kind of put yourself in the shoes of the people that were doing the work. It's really remarkable. It's a great entrepreneurial story as well, because oftentimes, CEOs and founders, they don't put themselves in the mindset of the people that work with them or for them. And they really need to do that, because then they can understand what that person's going through to make their company better. One thing that's very interesting, John, we always talk about at the show, as you know, about leading from the top. And one thing that your dad did for you is he led from the top, led from the front. So in your business, how important is it, John, to lead from the front with your corporate culture? You walk the walk, you talk the talk for the people that work with you. How important is it for you to make sure that you put on the right sort of mindset, the right projection, so that people can see the way in which you present yourself to the world?
Well, I built the company from the ground up. It was myself and a secretary to start. So I've performed each and every job in our company. At first, out of a necessity. But it also, something my dad taught me was that if you know what it takes for someone to do, you can have empathy for them, first of all, in what it takes. But you also, from a business standpoint, understand how much time does it take, what resources that your people need. And so we have a very open forum. We're kind of a flat organization. We're a small company, but if you're a draftsman and you need to walk into my office and have a conversation, you're welcome to. My partners, I've been in business with them since 1990. As a matter of fact, I worked for my partner originally up until 2006 when we spun this company off. and now he's still my partner. So we have a great amount of knowledge, a great amount of mentoring. I've been mentored, and we try to pass that on to our employees.
Yeah, it's so fantastic, John. Of course, you're very humble. I mean, just in the Pennsylvania area alone, you've done over 50,000 individual inspections. I mean, it's really, really, really awesome what you've done. Now, I want to take our conversation, move it into entrepreneurship a little bit. I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time. I mean, your phone's ringing off the hook with people wanting your expertise and your company's and team's expertise. Prior to the show, I asked you about this painting behind you. And you mentioned that it sort of is a painting that makes you think about business because, it's a bridge, and in business and in entrepreneurship, bridges lead to different places. And could you just talk about that a little bit, the way in which you think about business and entrepreneurship, and bring in the painting behind you about what you told me prior to the show, because it resonated for me. I thought it was super cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're all building something, whether you're in construction. If you're trying to build a company, you have to start with the basics. You have to write a business plan, and if you're smart enough, you'll not stick to it for very long when it doesn't work. So it's an intricacy, and this picture just kind of reminds me that when you're starting a business, there's a chasm in front of you, and you have to figure out a way to go around it, over it, through it in some fashion. And there's a lot of intricate moving pieces. So when you look at a picture like this, you see all the intricate interwoven parts that it takes to be successful in business. And as I explained to you, our job would be checking the knots and the anchorage so your company doesn't fall into the ravine as you cross it.
I love it. I mean, nobody wants to fall into the ravine, that's for sure. And of course, you need to have those knots tested. You need to have a qualified person check the knots, or else bad things happen, obviously. And you want to, as an entrepreneur or a developer or a commercial builder or residential builder, you want to make sure along the way you take the right steps, because it's so much better to fix the things early than have to try and fix them later. And I think that's what I'm hearing, right, John?
Absolutely. And again, you never know what's going to come up in business. You have to remain flexible, and take things as they come, because sometimes they'll hit you out of left field. You have the best laid plans of mice and men, but there's always something that's going to challenge you. And that's
I love it. I love it, John.
It's a challenge, right? So if you have to be up for the challenge.
That's awesome. And of course, I love interviewing CEOs who have a military background. It's so interesting to me. Let's talk about that a little bit. What did you learn at the in the military that you've transferred over to business? What types of things can you bring from your experience in military that you brought into building this amazing company?
Well, in the military, especially at a young age, when I entered at 17, you learn structure. Okay, so that is very important in all matters throughout life, that there is a way to do things. There's an order in which things should be done. And also, it was a very family-like when you're in the military with people. And you're working so closely on a day-to-day basis, you get that sense of family. And I think that has been a great advantage to me all throughout growing up and through my military career. But it was also, we were combat engineers. We built things. So it was your hands and your mind and your intellect. It challenged everything. You needed to accomplish this task. You may not have had all the materials or the know-how that you needed to do it, but nevertheless, you needed to push on. And I think that has helped me in my business career.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you started as a young boy working and building and of course, being part of a team with your family. And then you went to the military and you continued building and you became part of a team. And then you took all that experience, built your own team with your group of, very qualified people at the company. And of course, you're continuing to be in the building space. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. Now, when we think about entrepreneurship, we have some younger people watching the show, and maybe they're hitting a roadblock, maybe they're hitting a pothole in the road, maybe they're having a tough time, maybe they freeze in the frame. It happens to all great entrepreneurs at times. What type of advice can you give to the younger entrepreneurs, John, watching the show about what it takes to get through those roadblocks, coming out the other side, of course, being very happy that you went through the roadblock and got through them?
Well, I mean, I think you have to take a step back sometimes. Okay. You want to forge ahead, and there's pressures to get clients and money and everything else, but you really need good counsel. And I'm talking people that are in the business. Something that I started to do is that I hire people that are better than me in that area in which they're going to be. I don't need to be the smartest guy in the room. I'll take advice from a 5-year-old if he's right. So, I think that you really just need to gather back. And if you're a man of faith, then I would pray. If you're not, I would consult with the best attorney or the best mentor. Sometimes people cut it short. They can get a legal advice for $100 an hour when there's a guy that is $500 an hour, but that guy can do it in an hour. The other guy will take 10 or 15 hours. So I think you really have to stretch yourself sometimes and take a chance. Entrepreneurship is all about taking chances.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I mean, for the entrepreneurs watching the show, rewind what John just said. He kind of gave you a little Harvard MBA there. Surround yourself with the best that you can possibly surround yourself with. And again, grab a mentor, find a group of mentors, people that will tell you things that you need to hear. And one thing, John, that I find very fascinating, and I'd like for you to speak on this, if you will, because, I know that this will resonate for you, is oftentimes we surround ourselves with people that are sort of yes men, yes women. They only tell us what we want to hear. But if you surround yourself only with people that tell you what you want to hear, you really don't grow. Is that sort of your mindset? You want to surround yourself with people also that will tell you what you don't want to hear or give you an opposite viewpoint?
I think that you need that, and sometimes from the mouth of babes come brilliant advice. So you might have someone in your group, maybe not as experienced as the rest, but they see things differently from you. Their mind isn't clouded with all these other tasks and things that you have to do to run a business. But yeah, you definitely don't want people that agree with you all the time. I mean, you have them there to help you. We've lost quite a few clients by not being yes men, by telling them the hard truth. And we've also gained some lifelong clients by doing that too. So, you be honest, and be honest with yourself too. It may irritate you when you have someone younger or less experienced correct you, but again, take a step back. You really need to gather all the input. So you don't have to take anyone's specific advice 100%, right? You take the good from that, and you let the rest go to the side. So if you poll enough people, you'll come up with the right answer.
I love it. I love it. So listen, I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time for me today. I really appreciate this. This has been a great conversation. I'm going to bring you back on the show because I want to get more into sort of the way in which you lead, because, leadership is so important. You've learned so much through the years, not only from your father growing up, but also in the military, now leading, plans examiners for a long time into its leadership position. So I think it would be fascinating to have you back on the show. But I wanted to follow up just with one thing that you said, and I want to talk about your clients because I think it's pretty interesting. A lot of the people watch the show, they've got individuals as clients, they have people as clients, they consult with people. You consult with people, but also that are part of a bigger sort of entity. Oftentimes, sometimes they're part of a municipality or a governmental agency or something like that. When you think about your clients, and you think about the way in which you approach them, do you feel that there's a difference between approaching a municipality or approaching a person as a client, or do they both get that sort of specialized attention that you've become known for?
Well, I think that, everyone, even though you're speaking with a representative of a large corporation, the thing that you have to be cognizant of is, are you speaking to the right person? Right. So, you don't want to work your way through all the departments. You want to have the ear of the owner or the president or the council person or the director, because you'll spend a lot less time running in circles. As we like to say, we need a handler. Some of the things that we tell you, some departments within your corporation are not going to like it because it's a criticism of their function, but not necessarily that's the way it's received. It's not meant to be a criticism, but if there's an area where they're bleeding money, you just really have to be able to tell them face to face and look them in the eye and just say, look, I'm just the messenger on this. But no, I believe that whether you're dealing with an individual or not, we're in the service industry. And we serve our clients. We save our clients sometimes 1,000 times more than we charge them. So, the proof is in the pudding. Something my old boss taught me is that as soon as your client fails to see that what you bring to the table, right, the value of your services, you're not going to have a client for very long.
Yeah, that's such great advice. That's such a great pearl of wisdom, John. I love it so much. And of course, if you're building something like this bridge that's, on the painting behind you and you want to get to the other side, boy, if those knots, come undone or they don't work, man, you're in for some big problems. So, I'm going to call you the king of the knot tying. I mean, what you do at the business is you tie the knots. And what I love about it also, it's such a straightforward approach. You get the straightforward sort of answers from John and his team, and it just, resonates. And that's why people keep coming back to you. And like you said earlier at the top of the show, it's referral after referral after referral because you keep tying the tight knots that don't come undone. And it's just a great way to run a business. John, this has been a great interview. I mean, I'm going to bring you back on the show. I loved it so much. Thanks for bringing us into Plans Examiners and, of course, taking a dive into entrepreneurship with us. This has been a great, great show. And I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today. This has been remarkable. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Andy. We appreciate it and look forward to speaking with you again.